Ashley Comstock. I'm going to be running tech for the forum today. And our speaker today is UUCD Treasurer Alisa DeRider. Every quarter, the Board of Trustees holds a forum to let everyone know what's going on at the board and share financial reports. So this is that quarterly report.
Thank you, Ashley, for hosting. Very lovely. Hello, everybody. I see we have the usual suspects show up for the financial reports. Anne is going to speak after I am, as your board president, and Freiburger wanted to say a few words. We're going to let her do that after we get through this, the dry stuff. So, in general, we're doing great, as always, because we have a lovely church congregational administrator, and she does a fabulous job. And we have a nice set of team of volunteers, including Giger Yant and our financial council, always looking forward and being prepared for things that may come. I just wanted to give them some kudos because they do a great job. So I'm going to share my screens. We're going to start with the usual thing. We'll look at our budget. One moment, please. Operating budget. So I believe at this point you see Unitarian Universalist Congregation Operations Budget September 30th. So we're a little late on our form. We just needed to get things organized. Normally we tried to do this in October, but we've got the next forum scheduled, so you'll see them a little closer to the end of the quarter, which is what we try to do this right after the end of the quarter. So this, you'll see a bunch of columns, right? So this column is our budget for this year. So it's the full year, 12 months. This is how we're doing this quarter. And then for reference, we've also got the previous first quarters for the last 2 years. It's just a little interesting thing to look at. I think we'll hide that real quick for now, and we'll just look at how we're doing right now. And then maybe go circle back and look at how it was. Okay, so as you know, since it's the first quarter, we should be at about 25% of all of our budget. And generally we are. Pledges are, this is our pledges, identified giving, nursery school rent, just fine. Open plate looks a little low, but we haven't also been meeting in person. And I think we may have thought this past summer that we might have started meeting already, but that's not how it's going to go this year. I'm sure that this is fine. It's insignificant to our budget anyways. Building use looks, I mean, everything, as you can see, just looks fine. Miscellaneous income, yeah, that's just whatever. We don't even count on it. So this, I think you remember last year we had a surplus, quite a big surplus. What we decided to do as the Finance Council recommendation, and then the board voted on it, is to take the surplus from last year. So I think is about 34,000. We plopped all of as much into the current year budget to make this current year budget balanced. So we'll have a zero balance, no deficit, no income. And then we put the rest into our building reserves fund, which is great because we need to start building that up. And I think we are now starting to make strides towards doing that. So if something breaks, we have more than just a maintenance line item in our budget to take on those bigger things. So that's also doing well. Kathy puts in 1/4 of that each quarter. So that's why it's 5,000. So any questions? And I hope, Ashley, you can be fine if anybody raises their hand or something. That would be helpful. Any questions about income? Okay, we can always come back to it, or you can ask me, another time or whatever. So now we're on to expenses. And again, it looks pretty good. I think our utilities ended up being higher than we expected. I believe everybody in the city is being a little affected by this. I think we thought the increases were going to be X percent, and they ended up being a lot more. So our budget is also reflecting our utilities being off. Ground maintenance, of course, is our snow plow. We haven't had that much snow yet, so yay. But there's not much to say. It just seems like everything is pretty much in line. And then we've got our committees. There's something on here that I should have maybe checked with Kathy before our meeting, because I don't know why we have a negative $1,000 in social justice. I imagine that this was a budget adjustment, but I know it has a real valid reason, because everything does. Or if it is an error, we always fix it, because we review the financials all the time.
Alisa,
Yeah.
I think that was a gift. That's a money in that budget, a negative expense.
Oh, instead of putting it in a revenue, we put it in the, okay.
I
So
think
that's
so.
good. I mean, so that means that the Social Justice Committee has not only 13, or this whole grouping, Caring Committee Chump, not only 1,300, but they have $2,300 to spend.
You need to verify that with Kathy, but that's what I think the situation is.
Okay, I'm gonna just put it on the list. Everybody else looks like committees just pretty much, they set their own budget. Katie and now Courtney, of course, Courtney wasn't involved when we set this budget, but this is their budget. And we pretty much just give the committees whatever they ask for, because that's the heart of our community, right? Is our committees and the work they do, and we always want to support it. Oops, dang it, sorry. And then of course our fair share. We are trying to increase that slowly so that we are paying the whole part of our fair share, because we really think that's a priority. Even, for example, just the quality of services we get. And I don't want to say that it's services. It's like, it's like paying union dues. You need to pay your fair share, which is why it's called fair share. That's my opinion, is we need to be a part of our organization. It's a larger organization. So, questions about expenses? I see a chat popped up. What?
Yeah, so in the chat, Barb says no snow yet, so grounds maintenance is 0, but let's remember and be grateful for the berm garden people and outdoor sanctuary crew who mows and tends every week all growing season.
Yes, Barb, that is awesome. Yes, you're right. Thank you to our crew. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to just pop back up, and we're going to unhide these other quarters, the last 3 quarters. Some things very stable, like our nursery school rent, open plate. Look at that. It dropped down to 0. We know why. Yikes. I can't explain this. This is just when people give, and when they decide to give fulfill their pledges. Some people do it in large chunks, and sometimes they don't. So, but it's relatively stable, as you can see. Building use much higher before, we knew that. Special events, so now what we've been doing is we've been holding special events, kind of revenue generating activities more often. And like we just closed the eco sale isn't representative of that because it's November, but we've been having all these online rummage sales, which awesome to our online rummage sale people and our in-person rummage sale people. So we weren't doing that as much before. So that's an interesting difference. We also didn't have a carryover. A lot of our surplus is coming from the fact that we got some help from a PPP grant from the federal government. If you all remember, that was for paying for our payroll for our staff during the pandemic. So that gave us a boost. Anything else? Let me just keep scrolling down. We got expenses, ministerial staff. I think you know this includes not just our minister, but our director. Katie's position is director of family ministry. No, something like that. Minister of families. I forget her title. Anyways, and then also our music staff, and we've had some changes, and we've addressed different ways that we're supporting our staff. So that fluctuates. Support staff is Kathy Stinnett, and our janitorial and I believe nursery school people are in there. Not nursery as in United University Nursery School, but as in when we had little kids in the church during Sunday service. And here you can see that utilities bump. Kind of see how that had been a little consistent, and it's not. Of course, it looks like we just never get snow by this time, which is great. And then the committees just are what they are.
Alisa, that PPP grant, that's just a pure grant? That's not a loan that we have to pay back?
Right. It was considered a loan unless you used it for a certain percentage for payroll. And we did. We used it for payroll. And so then it's forgiven. So we went through a process Kathy did with Members Credit Union to sign the forgiven paperwork. So it turns into a grant. But good question. Okay, silence. That's good. So I was going to show you a couple other things real quick. We've got, oh wait, I think I need to unshare this one and reshare a new one. Balance sheet. So this is our, yeah, sorry, I need to hide a couple things. 1, 2, 3, no wait. 1, 2, oh, and then we're missing some. That's all right. You get the idea. So now these are not necessarily very consistent snapshots of our balance sheets. And so everybody remembers balance sheet is like our cash in the bank and our assets like our building. And these give you a snapshot of how it goes. It fluctuates a little bit on our assets. That's cash in the bank. Liabilities, that's what we owe people for various things. And then equity is the difference, of course. Ignore this word here. We're going to just hide that. It's not 4 times. I just have 5 times, but I also hadn't updated it before in the end of 2020, but jump around a lot. This is our the second set is our capital. So the first line is our, that's our building right there. Pretty consistent. Liabilities, we were down to seeing our mortgage being paid off, and then we have member loans, and that's where we're ending up there. And then these are our other kind of miscellaneous restricted funds, and I've just got the assets here, so you can see how they're going. You can see like we're getting an increase in our two. These are our two investments through Pax World, and they are climbing nicely, which is good to see. And then this operations is going to be like our building reserve and some other restricted funds that we have earmarked for, like music or acoustics or something, which we used up quite a bit now, because as you know, we've got a super sweet soundboard and a technology set up at the in the sanctuary. So that's been awesome. I see another chat popped up.
Yeah, we have some possible clarification from Teresa Presley. Hi there, $1,000 for social justice may be an entry error. We did use $100 toward Reverend Jim Bear last Sunday, and we raised an additional $300 to have him present at Forum and Sunday service. Thanks for all you do.
Okay, well, thanks, Therese. We will check on that with Kathy. Okay. The last report I'm going to show you. I should practice this next time I do this. Can I just move to a new report? I think I can't. I think I have to stop and then reshare again. But we'll find out. I'll get better at this. And this is a report. Now it's got a lot of details in it. And it's Giger prepares it for us, which is very fabulous. So this is kind of how our pledge, as you can see, capital and operations pledge performance. That's like how we're doing. Here's that 80, like roughly 86. We saw it at 83,000 on the balance sheet. Mortgage is paid off in spring, way ahead of schedule. I think everybody knows that, which is woohoo. We just have member loans now, which is this next section here. 80,000 in member loans. Cash on hand. And again, if Giger, if you want to jump in, or if anybody has questions. And thank you again, Giger, for doing this detailed report for us. There's a lot to read here, and I'm going to share these reports in our next Connect, so that you can look over them more thoroughly, all three of them, all the ones I've shown you. And this is just if you like to dig in the details, and sometimes we do this at Finance Council to see how everything's doing, and if we need to be concerned about anything, or if we see a trend of some pledges not being fulfilled. Is everything all right with our community? You know, it's that kind of thing. And then is there something we can do to help get those pledges in? So so that leads me to thank you to all of you for continuing to pay your pledges on time and fill out your pledge cards and tolerate and enjoy. I meant the stewardship committee, when they ask you to pledge and increase your pledge, which is always how it goes. And plus any cookies or books that you get. Hopefully next year, I don't want to even jinx it, but we might be able to do something a little more half in person and half online. But don't quote me. So any questions about this? Or Giger, if you have any, you want to pop in with any comments.
No, I'll just point out those numbers are through November 15th, last week, in terms of how we are with pledge payments and balances.
Yeah, good. Thank you for pointing that out again. It makes more sense to just do this as of the time that she creates a report instead of quarterly. So it's not linked to our quarters necessarily. It's current time. So those are my three reports. I'm going to stop share. Any other comments, questions? We get a lovely report from Kathy Stinnett every month that tells us how things are going, like a narrative, and it is always a rosy narrative. I mean, it doesn't mean that she sugarcoats things. I meant that she is, gives us a good estimate, and we are doing well. So I want you all to think positive thoughts about, keeping your pledges going. Now that I'm off of the thing, I could see the chats. The member loans, are we paying down the member loans this year? Good question, Beth Kamenin asked that. I don't have the answer for that. I would, in my personal opinion, without reviewing this with the finance council or the board, it seems like not a great time to be paying down a member loan, considering we still are a little uncertain about what's going on in our future. It would be, that'd be my personal opinion, but I can bring it up to the finance council.
I can comment on that.
Okay.
We're in our third round of member notes. They are 5-year notes that mature in 2025. And so there's no urgency to repay those in terms of their maturity or when they would be ending, if you will. And as you just said, Teresa, what our needs are to maintain the building, that's capital debt that's not yet paid off, but taking care of the building before catching things in the bud rather than when they get more expensive is important for the board to keep in mind.
Thank you, Giger. Another, if those, I'd like to read the chats for those who can't see them or maybe are on phones. Therese Presley says, I want to personally thank all the UU members and friends who increased their pledge this year. And as a reminder, Therese was our stewardship chair for 3 years. Yep. And 2. And now we are that's the wrong word. We are looking for a new chair, right, Anne? Yes, we are. So I think I'm done. We can come back to this, but I'd like to introduce, Anne Freiburger, our beloved president of our board. She has a few words for us.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to hear Alisa give us such a fine report for our finances. We always appreciate so much what you and Giger and Kathy do for us. Finances are a very important part of what we do. It isn't the most important, but it's very important. And so I just want to thank those 3 women for all they do to keep us on the straight and narrow so often, and giving these reports every quarter. It's great. So I would like just to briefly talk about COVID. This past couple of weeks, the board met and they passed a COVID a report, Kathy Stennett had asked what we should do about singing in the building. She had a request from a choir group.
It should be in a car.
Okay.
Giger, I can hear you. Let's see. And so the board met, and we passed 2 motions. Well, actually, I think 2 motions. Participants discussed what should be done for UUCD's choir to begin singing in person during services. A motion was made. The choir will be expected to follow all reasonable COVID-19 protocols as defined by UUCD guidelines. It was amended. The choir members will be expected to be fully vaccinated. And the amendment was approved and the motion was approved. So we can have singing in the choir, in the building, when people are fully vaccinated. They must wear their masks and those kinds of things. So also, participants also discussed congregational singing during services. In other words, can you and I sing if we're in the building during COVID? The motion, it is recommended that those participants who sing during services be fully vaccinated in addition to following UUCD COVID protocols. And that motion was approved. So we are able to sing in the building during our regular singing of songs, as long as we're fully vaccinated. And we've paid attention to all the other things that are required for COVID-19. Now, what are those things? Okay. We're requesting that everybody be vaccinated, that you wear a mask when you are in the building, that you socially distance. You and your group can be 6 feet apart from any other person, and that you have not been sick for 14 days prior to coming into the building. We would like for you to sign the sheets or sign up when you come in, so that if anything happens, we can then check back with the people that were there and at least let people know that something has happened and we're trying to be as safe as we possibly can. So I wanted to pass that on to you, and that policy will go into our book as board members. Now, a couple more things. I got the news a little about a week ago from Koresh Lakin, hi Koresh, that we need to get a new stove. I haven't yet found out what's going on with our stove, but I will. And we need to discuss how to get the money we need to buy a new stove. I thought you'd like to know that. Also, Kathy Stinnett and I have talked with a gentleman named Joe, who is a tech guy in Duluth, and he is going to install a new phone system for us. It'll save us a tiny bit of money, but we have a whole brand new high-tech telephone system. So we're pretty happy about that. And so that's great stuff. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was our library. We don't have a librarian. I guess we have, I think David Yount was the last librarian. He turned it over to Katie Neff Dawson. She's not a member, but she has been. I think she's actually been president of the board for a short period of time. Anyway, she thought she could do this, but she called me a few weeks ago and said, "Ann, I just can't do it." And so I'm on the hunt for a new librarian. And what I've learned since I know a person that is very interested in being our librarian. But what I've discovered is that we've got work to do before we can put a librarian in place. And, there's nothing that all of you need to worry about, but I will be looking at a group of people to give me guidance on what we need to do to hire it would be a volunteer job, to have a librarian come in and take care of our books. But there's some questions that need to be answered before I can do that. So we will get those questions asked and see how it comes out, and we may then have a new librarian. So that's what I have for this meeting. And I thank you very much for letting me have a few minutes to talk to all of you about what we're up to and how it goes with the board and that kind of thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ann. Does anyone have any remaining questions for Ann or Alisa?
This
Hi,
is
Kathy.
hi, this is Kathy Holzer here, and it's so sunny here, which is really something.
Where are you?
Well, I'm at home, but all of a sudden the sun came out just from behind the cloud. I know. No, this is like my special background. Looks like I'm not at home. But I wanted to thank the board and everybody else there at UUCD for being so vigilant during COVID. I know that, there's probably some pressure from time to time on you guys because you get this this other church's meeting and they're all singing and they're doing this and they're doing that. And part of what I always say to anybody is, we're big on science at our place. And so that's, a part of why we're following those protocols. And I think, anybody that's kind of following this and watching the news knows that right now it's as worse as it's ever been. And
Ever
so,
been.
yeah, and I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this stuff remotely. And someday I hope that we can, be back there in person, but at least for our family, that's not right now. So I just really want to thank you guys for everything you've been doing to keep us safe and make this happen. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kathy. I will tell you that on November 19th, just a couple of days ago, when I want to know what's going on with COVID, besides what David so graciously gives us always, that it's called COVID Act Now Minnesota, and you can actually look at the figures from for Duluth. And this 2 days ago, Duluth had 80 people in the hospital with COVID-19. And we had a 1.17% infection rate in our city, in what they call Duluth. And so that's the highest we've ever had. I hope it doesn't keep going up, but this COVID thing, I don't think anyone has any idea of what our future looks like. And I really hope that we'll be safe. We'll do the things we need to do to be safe. It's a little frustrating that we can't do the things we normally would have done two years ago, but we're all still here. And that is very great. So we'll just keep tracking along and seeing what the people are saying at the CDC and at the COVID Act Now. And I'll let you know what's going on so you can make your own decisions. Teresa, did you have a question?
I would
Oh,
like
okay.
to say how much I appreciate the fact that we're putting those excellent ads on NPR. Those are really reflective of who we are, and whoever made that happen, and I think it's Anne, I don't know.
No, it is not. It is
Okay,
not
well,
me.
who's ever doing it, my compliments and thank you so much.
It's Kathy Peterson.
Ah,
Yes,
Yes,
I can speak to that. She took her $1,200 COVID check and gave it right to UUCD to use for those ads.
Yes, and they're great ads.
yeah.
I think there's a relationship with that and the balance that Alisa was showing in the social justice line. There was a lot of revenue. That's a very active committee, as Therese Presley can personally attest. And yeah, so Kathy Peterson did make that generous gift with the purpose of putting us on Minnesota Public Radio.
The best radio. KUMD is pretty good too.
And
I have a question.
Sure.
When the nursery school has any outbreak of any kind of infectious disease like COVID or any other, are they supposed to let us know?
Yes.
Have they done
Yes.
so?
They have never had an incident.
Well, they've had COVID, really.
What?
They've had incidents of kids in there having COVID.
No,
You sure about that?
that's what I talked to.
Or exposed to COVID?
Well, I talked to her less than a week ago, and she told me they've never had an incident.
Okay,
And she sent me their protocol.
okay, good.
David?
It was a full year and a half ago that there was an exposure through an intern who was a university student. And at that time, they did quarantine for a group of students for a week. But that's been at least a year. And there wasn't been anything tested positive among the staff, but they knew that a staff member had been exposed. And so they notified us and they took the proper precautions.
Thank you, David. I never did figure out if she was telling me, since she's owned the the facility. Maybe she's talking of that point on. I don't know. I just assumed.
Yeah, maybe so. And as I say, no one tested positive, but because there had been an exposure, as an intern student had been exposed on the campus, they took the precaution.
Okay, thank you.
Reese, did you have something before? I thought I saw your mic pop off for a minute.
I can talk to Ann. I was wondering with the librarian thing, did she want to talk to retired librarians? But I'm not a retired librarian, but I have a sister-in-law who is, and I'm thinking, maybe she could be an asset. So
Thank you.
I'm not a librarian, but I play one on TV.
I actually have a little bit of a group kind of figured out. I haven't talked to anybody yet, but I think Reverend Bruce and Diana Moore and Susan Taylor and David Yount might be a good committee to talk about what we need to know about the librarians.
good start.
So we still have a few minutes. So any questions, finance board or other?
Should we have a no bake sale? Should we put a cookie jar out in the social hall and for collections for the new stove, Koresh? That's where my mind goes to. And fill up the cookie jar for that new stove.
A good start. That would be a good start.
That'd be unstealable.
Hi, Jan.
Koresh, do you have any sense of what the cost will be, what the market is?
I think Ann and I talked about possibility of getting a used one, since many of these restaurants closed during the COVID epidemic or still are being closed. They're still experiencing a lot of problem, and perhaps we can be lucky to get one of these at one of the what we call warehouses. A used one would probably be about 4,000. A new one between about about $6,000 to $8,000.
I have a question. Are we considering not getting gas? I wrote a note to you because, you know, there's just so much more new research about the toxicity of fossil gas in indoor air pollution, or else at least make sure we get a stove that doesn't off gas as much as our current one, because there's a constant gas odor in the kitchen, you know.
Yeah.
This is so, and you know, that's one reason we should do something, either refurbish what we have right now, which is going to be expensive to do. It's an old stove. It's had years of use.
Yeah.
And if we get a new one, the new one is probably more efficient as well.
I think that's a great idea to go electric, frankly, because then if we ever get solar panels, okay, oops, someone's shaking their head no. But anyway, I'm with Beth about the maybe not do gas.
Yeah, I mean, induction is the thing that the new chefs are doing, which is, but it is expensive. There's no question about that. So anyway.
And you have to have all magnetic pans. You have to have special pans.
That's
My dog
correct.
has an inversion. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think that was it. We only got 3 minutes of sunshine. It went away now.
I'd just like to very quickly say, I'm so glad that we have our choir starting, and I will be there at 12 for our first rehearsal to get Christmas stuff together for the 19th. So thank you all for giving us that information.
And thank you for doing the COVID rules.
Yeah.